And this is, I believe, personally, the Baltimore Ravens are the best team in football. Now, let me go over the reasons why I believe the Ravens are so great. Let's look at their first two performances real quick. So, in week one, they faced the Cleveland Browns, and it was an absolute blowout. We're talking 38-6, and the Cleveland Browns really couldn't do anything to the Baltimore Ravens defense. It was just a pitiful performance from them and a dominating one from the Ravens. And in week two, the Ravens faced off against the Houston Texans, who are considered to be, a team with some talent, but they're not going to be a playoff team this year. Most people agree. They were last year, so that can kind of fool people. But they've had a pretty tough schedule so far. Their first 2 weeks, Kansas City and Baltimore. You're not guaranteed to even get close to winning in either of those two games, and they didn't. But let's go over the specific reasons why I believe the Ravens are the best team in the NFL right now. And let's start off with one of their most important aspects to their game, their rushing attack. Let's look at all of their great pieces that can run the ball. Their first one being Mark Ingram the second. Now, I believe that Mark Ingram may be one of the most underrated running backs in the NFL. Now, I know people would say, really? Like, he's up there. People think he's pretty good. And I would agree, but this guy can be a number one on almost any team in the NFL, I really do believe. Other than, the Giants with Saquon Barkley, he's out for the year, but the Giants, and there's a certain select few teams, the Saints with Alvin Kamara. There are a few teams, but Mark Ingram is just, I'd consider him to be, probably about the 10th. He's in the top 10 running backs in my eyes. I know that's a bit crazy, but I think he's just around that top 10 area. He's a complete running back, and maybe the box score stats don't prove that, but just from eye test, just from me watching him over the last few years, I really like Mark Ingram. I liked him out of college. And so I've kind of always, had a little bit of favoritism towards him since he won the Heisman back in his college days. And I believe he can get 1,000 yards this season if the carries don't get split up as much as they maybe could or should be. The second option is rookie out of Ohio State, J.K. Dobbins. Now, for Dobbins, I actually really liked Dobbins coming out of this 2020 draft class. He was actually my top running back in that draft class, and I did believe that he would have the best future. So seeing him go to a stacked team like the Baltimore Ravens kind of scared me inside a little bit. I really expected my Kansas City Chiefs to take Dobbins with their pick in the first round. They went a different route. They went Clyde Edwards-Helaire out of LSU, and so far, we can't really tell who's the better running back, of course. Clyde had a really good week one performance, and week two, he was alright. He was okay. But I like J.K. Dobbins a lot. He hasn't really proved that much. Nobody's really talking about him incredibly much, but I do believe that he has potential to be a great, at least second option for the Ravens. And it's crazy that he's going to be their second option because their third option could be at least a great second option on a lot of teams, probably a good first option on teams like the Jacksonville Jaguars, who are running an undrafted free agent out of this year's class. I'm talking, of course, about Gus Edwards. Now, some of you might not know that name. Some of you like hardcore fans or fantasy viewers might recognize Gus Johnson. But I really do believe in Gus. I think he has some great talent. And I think that, yes, he might have benefited from being in the Baltimore Ravens offense. But I really believe that he could be great on a lot of different teams. He's shown an ability to hit the holes and get, those tough first few yards. He's really good at yards after contact. He's just really one of those guys that I trust a lot as a running back. I don't think, every time he gets the ball, I expect him to get 4+ yards. I don't expect him to fumble. And he passes the eye test for me. This last weekend, I believe he had around 10 rushes for 74 yards, really good game, and I'd like to see him get more carries, but him being the third option, kind of makes it hard, and I think he could probably find some success outside of the Baltimore Ravens. So we'll have to see what they decide to do with him because, he might demand some money. He's had really good performances, and maybe he's content with being on a team that's going to contend for the Super Bowl every year. So, for a while at least, I do believe. And so that's kind of their running threats, other than the obvious one. And let's talk about that real quick. Lamar Jackson. Last year, he set the single season rushing record for a quarterback. Over 1,000 yards. That's pretty great. I mean, that's better than Michael Vick. And he is potentially the greatest running threat at quarterback of all time, which is ridiculous considering how many great running quarterbacks you can think of. Guys like Michael Vick, of course, Vince Young, and there's a few guys you can think of who could really just run at the quarterback position. And yet this guy out of Louisville, Lamar Jackson, has proved to possibly be the best, and I think he's going to continue to be the greatest dual threat quarterback in the league for many, many years to come. I mean, we're talking he can scramble. If it's a designed running play, he can also get yards, but I mean, this guy can improvise. He can make plays. He can make up his mind in a split second, and he can put defenders into the dirt. I mean, he can juke. He can spin. He has a wide arsenal of moves that he likes to use when he is taking it for himself and he's running up the field, Even if he's on the sideline, he's proven that he can make a lot of defenders miss. He's good at evading tackles, breaking off tackles. It's hard to bring this guy down, and he might be one of the hardest quarterbacks to plan against in the entire NFL. He's got to be like top 3, him, Mahomes, and Russell. I believe that's kind of about the top tier of quarterbacks, You can definitely, if you want to throw Drew Brees in there, you can. But I'm not going to put him in there, especially not after that Week 2 performance. But Drew Brees has proven to be a really good quarterback in the past. But I don't see him being in that top tier. Now, Lamar so far, let's go over his stats. Let's see how he's been doing passing the football, right? We just talked about how great of a runner he is. But he's called the dual threat for a reason, right? So far, Lamar's passing stats look like this. He has completed 77.9% of his passes. That is ridiculous. That is one of the greatest clips I've seen over a 2-week span. This guy is deadly accurate with the football. And he's taken some shots, too, so we can't just say he's been dinking and dunking. Like, when you see Drew Brees' completion percentage, and it's like 72, 74%, and you're like, yeah, but he doesn't really throw down the field that much. He takes an occasional shot, but mainly he's throwing to Michael Thomas, about 10 yards deep, curl routes, slants. That's what you kind of think of when you think of Drew Brees. Lamar's been taking shots, and he's been deadly accurate with the football. He has a touchdown to interception ratio of 4 touchdowns to 0 interceptions. I mean, this guy has been playing like maybe the best quarterback in the league so far. Obviously Russell Wilson is the front runner for MVP, but Lamar so far, he's not very far behind. That's all I gotta say. This guy has been playing out of his mind lately, and it doesn't hurt that he has such an amazing team around him. Speaking of defense, let's talk about defense a little bit, right? And the Ravens defense is pretty great. Let's talk about, do they have any holes? I don't personally think so. And let's start by talking about probably their greatest position, their cornerbacks, their defensive backs. Let's talk about their 2 cornerbacks that are the big names. Marcus Peters and Marlon Humphrey may be the best tandem of cornerbacks in the league. Marcus Peters, I have a long history with Marcus Peters, being a Chiefs fan. He was on the team for a while, and I was used to him getting about 6 to 8 interceptions per year. He's really good at making those big plays, and he's taken that And he's also added to his game. I feel like he's been a lot more consistent with the Ravens at not allowing big plays. He's been more of a shutdown corner than a big play corner. Like, he still makes his big plays every now and again, but I feel like he's become just better at, just regular coverage, just zone and man. Yeah, I feel like he's just grown as a player over the last few years. Last year, he was a Defensive Player of the Year candidate, and I think that was well deserved. I mean, the guy has been playing fantastic for the Ravens, and it kind of sucked when he got traded for a second-round pick, and I hated that move at the time. And I believe it was to the Rams at the time, and he played for the Rams for a little bit. But he is absolutely phenomenal. Like, I can't say enough good stuff about the guy. And then combine that with Marlon Humphrey, who he is getting to that level. He's getting to that Defensive Player of the Year, Marcus Peters type level, where when you have a guy like Peters, right, who can shut down a number one wide receiver, usually you go and attack the other guys. You don't throw to that side of the field. Well, now that's a problem for teams, because when you have two guys who can shut down receivers with Marlon Humphrey and Marcus Peters, you don't have that many options. What do you take? You take the safety valve, you throw to the tight end. Like, eventually teams are going to pick up on that, and they're going to run schemes that are designed to stop that kind of stuff. So now you're forced to throw to a guy who's being covered by one of the best DBs in the league. And that's not good. And they're forcing them into short passes, dinks and dunks. We're talking about a Browns offense in week 1 who had Odell Beckham Jr., Jarvis Landry, Austin Hooper, a bunch of weapons, and they scored 6 points on this Ravens defense. If that doesn't show you how much of a lockdown team this Ravens team is, I don't know what does. Because this Ravens team shuts down anybody and everybody. They have capable and fast linebackers. I mean, they're good against the run, but when you think about them, I mean, they're just a pass defense team. You think of their DBs, like I just mentioned, their linebackers. They can be versatile. They're a very versatile team. And they also have great pass rush. I mean, there is no spot on this team that isn't filled with at least a good, capable player. There are no big holes on this team, and I do believe they're the most complete team in football. There are 2 questions for the Baltimore Ravens right now, and I'm going to ask and kind of answer both of these questions right now. And you guys can agree or disagree. Let me know in the comments below what you guys think. Can this team perform the same as last year? And can they beat the Chiefs this Monday? By perform the same as last year, I really mean, can they keep the same record? Can they be a 14-2 team? Or are they going to falter against some of the better teams? As much as I just lauded, the amazing Browns offense, I mean, they're not really a great team, right? Their defense is questionable. They let up 38 points to the Ravens, and they were letting up a lot of points to Joe Burrow, who is inexperienced. As much as I love the guy, he's a rookie, right? And so I really don't know how well they can perform this season. And I really want to see how they play this Monday against the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, I know this Chiefs team has not gotten to the level that they should be at just yet. They're not at their Super Bowl winning, form of last year. They still look like they're in preseason right now, which is not great. They still need to gel a little bit. Their chemistry is not 100%. They still have a lot of, gaps to fill and, injuries to worry about and all that stuff, especially with Watkins probably out for concussion protocol and all that jazz, all that fun stuff that the NFL season brings. I think the Ravens will have a real test this Monday against the Chiefs, and I think this will be the time to answer. Are they able to hang with the big boys like they did last year? And I think the answer will be yes. I think they'll give the Chiefs a run for their money, but I can't tell you who's going to win that game. I really can't, because I don't know what version of the Kansas City Chiefs we're going to see. And that will really determine if I think the Ravens will be that team this year, if I think they will be a Super Bowl team this year, we're going to find out, I think, this Sunday. Or this Monday, my bad. On Monday Night Football, the big stage, I guess we'll finally find out. And can Lamar and the Ravens finally get it done in the postseason? So you saw in Lamar's first year as a starting quarterback, they lost to the Chargers. And I'm not going to pin that one on him. He was going against a pretty complete team back then in the Chargers. We lauded them as, they're a very complete team. They might be the most complete team in the league. They're great at wide receiver. They're great at quarterback. They're great at tight end. Their defense is amazing. Linebackers, safeties, DBs. But they lost to that Chargers team, and it was Lamar's rookie year. So I'm not going to fault him that much for that loss. But last year's loss to the Titans, as much as we're going to look back on that Titans team and be like, they made an amazing run. They made it to the AFC Championship. They faced the Chiefs, and they gave them a run for their money, and that was the eventual Super Bowl winning team. It can't be forgotten that the Ravens were favored to win the AFC. They were the number one team in the AFC, and they should be treated as such, like they were last year. They were expected to win that game. They were expected to make it to the Super Bowl and potentially win it that year. So we can't really, take the blame off of Lamar, especially after how he performed in that game. We have to really look and be like, can they get it done? Are they a regular season team? Are they the Houston Rockets of the NFL? Are they really great in the regular season and then they just can't get it done in the postseason? I don't know. I'm willing to bet they make a farther run this season. I don't think there's going to be a Titans team that comes up and beats them again. I don't think we're going to see anything like that this year. But I think they're going to have to fight for their lives. I don't think they get into, postseason form as well as other teams like the Chiefs did last year. So that's everything for the Ravens. That's why I believe they're the best team in football.